actor, activist, fitness icon. Those are just 3 of the acts of Jane Fonda's life and career, and now the public can dive into the details of that at Smith College, where Fonda's private archives, including letters, documents, movies, and more, are housed in its Sophia Smith collection. Fonda didn't attend Smith, so I asked Beth Myers, Smith College Director of Special Collections, why did Fonda donate her collection to the Northampton-based liberal arts school?
The Sophia Smith collection, which is one of the 3 collections that Smith governs in the library, it is one of the world's best collections of women's history. So we've collected around women in activism for a very long time, since the early 40s, and whether that was abolition or suffrage and
right to choose.
Women's right to, absolutely. We have a spectacular collection around reproductive justice rights and women's health and well-being. And so we also, of course, have the papers of Gloria Steinem, and Gloria and Jane knew each other from their work in the media center, Women's Media Center. So it was a natural connection, and really Gloria's been wonderful for helping really bring Smith,
other women.
Yes, advocate.
With Jane Fonda's, not only her career as an actress, but as an activist and a mother, and just so many different boxes that I feel like fit with the collection. I can imagine you sort of sitting there thinking like, oh yes, this is so exciting. This fits all these different areas. But in terms of the items, thousands of them, right? 130 boxes. Can you talk about 1 or 2 items that stand out for you in particular that you think are exciting?
Well, one of the great things about the collection as a whole is that it's so comprehensive, that we do have her life documented, even family life pre-Jane, up until materials we just received last June. So it's rare to get a collection of an individual's life that's so comprehensive. So it's hard to pick one thing out of so many, but I think from a historical perspective, a historian's perspective, having all of the film of the Introduction to the Enemy, the 1974 film that she did with Tom Hayden and Wexler to document Vietnam and the war in Vietnam, really it's very rare. And we digitized it so that now we can share it with the public.
And when those items came, is it the film itself? Are there pieces of it that the public has never seen before that are now also in the archive? What's involved there?
Yes, in fact, we have over 133 reels and boxes of reels that include the B-roll, the cuts and trims, which are not necessarily very film easy, but certainly can be viewed. So it's again, the comprehensiveness of the collection is one of the things that makes it so unusual, especially for someone of her notoriety and her fame. That she really gave freely and of the materials, that she didn't edit them. We really have a comprehensive picture of her life so
she
far.
Was born in, right, exactly, and she's still active in whether it's film work or activism today. She was born in 1937, but the items start in 1932.
Yes.
Is that common to get things from before when the donors were born?
Yes, and we hope for it. It doesn't always happen, but in
more
Jane's
case, right?
yes, more context. It's so, from baby books and pictures of grandparents, if in some cases it's relevant to have immigration papers, the sort of family journey that produces a person, and helps us better understand who she is.
I also understand that her FBI file
Yes.
is part of the record, which I think that is always so fascinating when you can look at something that the government has collected on someone who was involved in such a controversial movement. She was, avid anti-war activist.
Yes.
And quite outspoken. And really, I think that for her career, since she was such a well-known and beloved actress, to really make that pivot, really kind of divided the public's opinion on her for quite a while, right?
I think so too. It's when you look at her life, again, so far, because it's extraordinary. We talk about it, and she's talked about it in acts, and it's true. And in the 50s and early 60s, she was theater and theater to film. And then by the time you get to the 70s, the activism has become central to who she is, which, and you could see the threads of it developing, caring about women's rights, caring about being anti-war. And then in the 80s, we see this her juggernaut of exercise and health and well-being into the 90s with philanthropy, and now in the aughts where she came back into acting more explicitly.
And Netflix. So
oh, it's huge, right?
To go from being a model to film and television and home videos, and now embracing a technology that's a streaming technology, she's just hit all the marks.
She really does, and I love this idea of how people know her, and I think in some ways it's generational. I was first introduced to Jane through the 80s when I was younger because my mother had her tapes and had her books and had the leotards, and so I didn't know her as an activist. I didn't know the Vietnam work that she had done.
We took, as a sort of preparation for this, we took a little informal poll in the office, and some people mentioned Barbarella, some people mentioned 9 to 5. I'd forgotten that she was in that movie. And then, of course, Vietnam, because Ken Burns did the documentary for PBS, we talk about that here too. So just so many different ways that she connects with the public. I want to talk a little bit about the collection. So we mentioned Gloria Steinem, Clara Barton, Loretta Ross, some of the more well-known women who are part of the collection. But as I understand it, there are also people who are sort of lesser known to the general public whose papers are part of the collection. Why is it of interest for Smith to have that range of documents available to people?
Because women's lives are complicated, because the experiences aren't universal. We certainly focus on collecting women who have advocated on behalf of other women and gender minorities. That's our focus very generally. But you cannot tell that story if you're just looking for the famous. And in a way, it's sort of also wanting to have the comparison of those who have fame and maybe access to resources, political power, and those that are grassroots, those who are really, on the ground, advocating in their communities, building health centers and opportunities for women, and what does that look like in safe places for women. So if we don't document the whole, we're really doing a disservice to women and rendering them very two-dimensional or very simplistic. And of course, we're not. And we haven't been. And for a long time, women were largely ignored out of the historical record. And that's changing. And that's been a long time coming. And it's places like the Sophia Smith collection and others that, without that evidence, without the depth and complexity of the archival record, then you just still have those silences.
If people, I imagine scholars will want access to either Jane Fonda's collection or the wealth of other information that you have there, but also the public too, and it's open to the public, right?
Absolutely.
How do people come and take a look at the items?
Come during business hours.
Do they have to make an appointment?
Nope.
They can just show up.
Show up and say, you don't even need to know exactly what in the collection you want to look at. We have a wonderful reference staff. We are there to help you navigate. It is, in Jane's collection in particular, is a large collection. Not all of them are so big, but we will help you. I'm interested in whatever subject. I'm interested in reproductive rights. Okay, well, here are the collections we have.